What's up everybody, and welcome back to another YouTube video, and today I am experimenting with something. Today we are reading Reddit, RPG horror stories. So let's read a few stories, so kick back, relax, and enjoy. DM kicks me for not communicating for 4 days despite being active over 4 days. This is relatively recent, so I'll tell the story while I have it in mind. A few weeks ago, I agreed to join an online game, which from experience is always a gamble, and we were getting ready to have our first game. This worked fine for me because I was going to get home from a long road trip by then. Now, despite the fact I was on the road, I agreed to a call while I was on said trip, and even explained that I was on the road at the time. I thought everything went well. I had a character concept ready and just needed the backstory sent. However, during the last day of the road trip, I had no signal, so I could not read or see anything sent to me. I knew the GM is aware I'm on a road trip, so I didn't worry. When I did have signal, I got links to join the game, which was starting 2 days earlier than what I was informed. So I joined and sent a very rough backstory and clarified I'd update it once I got home. So when I got home and finally get ready to send my stuff, I see a message from the GM. I opened said message that claims I'm childish, immature, and self-absorbed for not talking for 4 days. I respond rather confused and tell them I had only just got home and was getting ready to send the complete backstory. I then got blocked by the GM and kicked from the game before I could even ask why they got the idea I wasn't talking over 4 days. It was kind of disorientating, going from being on seemingly good terms to being insulted and kicked out. Now, if I wasn't talking enough without cause, or not responding at all, I'd understand being kicked, but I had a reason that was communicated and explained prior, so safe to say I was surprised. I'm just glad I dodged a bullet because that came out of nowhere. The sad part is I genuinely wanted to play and was excited for it. Edit. Fix some grammar. So, I've never been kicked from a group, but that is a pretty big bullet to dodge. If you're not, thing is, there's times when you're not going to be able to communicate, and if somebody is so upset over something so small, when it's also explained, it's good that you didn't get, a couple sessions in and just dodge that bullet. You can start a new campaign with somebody else. Okay. This is a smaller one. Onstream Misgendering. Bigotry warning. So it's gonna be fun. Great. Relevant info. I'm non-binary, they, them. I play in a streamed campaign with a shishit man for 2 years. At first, he had trouble remembering my pronouns, but the table was diligent about correcting him whenever he misgendered me. By the end, he never used the wrong pronouns, and GM'd another game where, to my knowledge, he didn't misgender the 2 non-binary players at his table. It felt buoying, not just for me, but for queer audience members. So imagine my surprise when, in our second campaign, he creates a character who misgenders me repeatedly as a joke. Not only was he jokingly calling my non-binary character female, he was also insinuating they were the daughter of their romantic interest. The game fell apart pretty quickly. So that does suck. That does happen. Some people are not as welcoming to trans people and stuff like that, right? I have a non-binary friend I keep misgendering them because I've known them for years before. I feel bad every time. This one is titled, "The One and Only Time I Offered to DM for My College's TTRPG Club." While this may not be the typical horror story of this sub, I thought I would share anyway. I don't think any other community would understand or appreciate the sheer psychic damage I took during this experience, nor comprehend the depths of the baffling decisions made. This is a tale about the one and only time I agreed to DM an event for my college TTRPG Club, which went so poorly from an organization perspective that I swore off anything involving them again. First, some context. I was not a member of their club and had no interest in doing so. Firstly, I just wasn't interested in getting involved in more TTRPGs at that stage of my life. And also, their style of play and DMing just didn't gel with mine. From what I gather, it was just the norm for most similar clubs. Ban lists a mile long, strict times for sessions, official content only for PCs and DMs, minimal interaction with PC backstory, strict attendance per table, etc., etc. I don't mention this to bash on them for those rules. I imagine most were born from logistics, and from all accounts the players at those tables loved the sessions. It just wasn't my cup of tea, and thus I never interacted much with their tables till this story. While not a member of their club, I was instead a member of another club. Our club was invited by the TTRPG Club to partake in a crossover event. Effectively, they wanted to just DM a one-shot themed around our club. We agreed, and when the numbers started coming in, the TTRPG Club realized they need extra hands in order to maintain their preferred player to DM ratio. They asked for some help. Apparently, my name came up as someone who could do it, and when asked, I agreed to do so. Immediately, things got a bit awkward. For some reason, the guy in charge and who invited me to DM, we'll just call him Sam for this post, decided that immediately after I accepted it, it was important to inform me it was an in-person event because only morons play online. It's the shittiest way to play. They continued to just generally insult online, as well as other ways of play, before I interjected and shared that I had been running an online game very successfully for the past 2 years. After an awkward beat, the conversation then shifted to sharing different stories of our DMing and playing, as well as answering questions that a friend of mine who was a newbie had. Or well, to be more specific, she asked a question and then Sam would turn to me to answer it. This came across as just bizarre, as it sounds, and seemed to be the norm for Sam upon seeing them more often over the coming days. When interacted with by any woman, Sam would instead turn to address a man in the room with his response. Alright, well that's a great start to Sam's character of being very, very likable. Later that day, I was added to the group chat to organize the event and discovered it was planned to be Game of Thrones themed. This being back when the show was huge and everyone was awaiting for the final season eagerly. Immediately, I asked what system they were using, sharing that I had been lucky enough to find a copy of the Asoif TTRPG core rules. I was then, and still am, yet to use the system, but was happy to start poring over it, and sharing as needed to run it. I was then informed that actually, as a rule, the TTRPG Club exclusively used 5e systems for play, and as such, this would be a 5e port. I was surprised to hear this, recalling the numerous stories I heard of their sessions, but asking those who were members for more info was shocked to discover that all those sessions of Paranoia and Shadowrun and other systems were just 5e ports. Apparently the TTRPG Club were exclusively D&D, and in fact their DMs apparently had never once played or ran non-5e systems. Yeah, TTRPG Club. They're just a D&D club. As a person who has founded a D&D club in their high school, I can understand that it is pretty difficult to actually run it, especially when an RPG club, it attracts new people to it. So, I mean, I did 5e D&D specifically because it was easy-ish to learn, and in fact, it was better to just stick with D&D than jump to different RPG systems, because if somebody's new, why jump from one system which they're still learning to a whole new one which they have to learn? And also, everybody, I mean, D&D isn't that bad. Still reeling from this, we were then informed that each PC was going to pick a house in addition to their background and be given associated benefits. Note, they were not from the house or related to them in any way, mind you. The idea was just that they gained these benefits from living on their land for a while. Those from House Targaryen were all immune to fire damage. Starks were made into werewolves with the added effects of the MM. Lannisters started with an extra 50 GP, etc. It was here that we also learned that those in charge, including Sam, had never actually watched the show and were unwilling to receive any feedback from the temps. We then come to the next day, where the players were to be sorted in groups for each DM to take during an in-person meeting. Now, I am usually told by other people that supposedly I have some sort of skill on picking up on unspoken social cues. I, however, do not believe any such skill was required to pick up the following bizarre ritual. First, each table was gender segregated as much as possible. Women only on some tables, men only on others. Minimal overlap. No one would have any strong opinion as to what group they would take. That was until Sam would suggest that they take one of the female-only groups, at which stage one of their regular DMs would instantly step in and proclaim that they suddenly got invested in DMing that specific group. This continued like some fucked up game for the entire meeting until the groups that were male only were left. I never asked, nor do I think I would want to know why this little ritual existed. It was here, though, that we were finally given the biggest logistical nightmare itself, the one-shot itself. Supposedly, the details were voted on by all of their regular DMs and shared the same day as the sessions, and it was only 2 pages long, one for stat blocks and the other for the actual one-shot adventure information. I will briefly summarize this now. 1. The party is wandering Westeros, when they're suddenly attacked by a troop of wildlings. When these wildlings lose half their numbers, the wildlings will give out to the party for being reckless in the wasteland and how they need to work together. The party will travel with the wildlings and arrive at their camp. Most of the sheet was details of the magic items that could be bought. The party heads from the camp with their dragon glass to kill the local White Walker. That was it. In its entirety, to reiterate, the wildlings attacking were meant to be the same ones offering surrender once they were losing. The adventure hinged upon them being taken to their camp willingly. And finally, the dragon glass was not for sale at their camp, nor was there any mention of it, or of a White Walker till they went to kill it. As well as all that, the sheet was covered in basic grammar and spelling errors, as well as other questionable rules. In order to fix this and make it actually useful, I immediately got onto the two other DMs I was friends with to try and bang out this outline out into something usable. This was somewhat complicated, however, as one had to call over the phone and couldn't hear properly over my other friend laughing maniacally upon reading the original sheet. Eventually, though, we managed to bang out a new stat block, as well as streamline the adventure to meet the same plot points, but have more coherent series of events. We then got to the session itself, which went rather perfectly, actually. The changes worked, and the players all had a great time overall. Greatly enjoyed the session. It was overall a huge success. Sam, however, was not happy upon hearing about some of these changes, and after the session seemed irate that anyone would dare change a word they had written. I still think the changes were all for the better, however, and simply declined any future invites to join the club for the remainder of my college experience. Right? Sam seems like a very, very, very... okay. So Sam seems very sexist, and then also very controlling. I think he created the TTRPG Club so he could control, right? I think when when everybody threw in their 2 cents, it was actually mostly Sam who was giving his ideas and probably wrote the whole thing himself, right? And not being able to listen to reason. I think there were plenty of red flags that that OP should have seen and should have taken and should have actually dodged a bullet. And I mean, at least it worked out in the end, but overall it could have been better, I think. But overall I think OP could have dodged a bullet by just not doing it. Just saying, hey, things came up, and then not doing it, right? But I hope you guys enjoyed this video, because I enjoyed making it, and I'll see you all in the next one. Bye-bye!